right, but on to the, I guess you could call it the main thing that we're going to talk about today, and that has been my completely crap week that's been going on, and it all kind of started. Now, today is Sunday the 19th, which means that last Saturday was the 11th, I think. Whatever last Saturday was, not counting the Saturday that just happened, but the one before that. I got up and Gaz and I, we were, talking about recording, and then all of a sudden, my M1 Mac Mini just crashed and blinked out, came back, and it was like, oh, okay, well, I don't know what happened there. And I got this, do you want to report this to Apple with like an entire 2 to 3 pages of stuff that it's like, I have no idea what any of this means, but it's like, sure, send it off to Apple. And then it happened again and again and again and again. And then finally it blinked out, and instead of coming back up, the little LED that's at the front of the all of the Mac Minis started pulsing orange. And it was like, I'm not an expert at these things, but I think that this is bad. So nothing I could do. I actually went and, have you ever heard of a program called Configurator from Apple?
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that I found online to try was to erase and reset the firmware on your computer. And you can do that with Configurator. So I tried that. It didn't work. And it's like, okay, well, maybe there's something on something in storage that's not quite right. And I've got lots of backups. So I say, I'll wipe my storage and then restore. And it got about halfway through doing that and then stopped. And it was like, okay, don't know what's wrong here, but it is so far beyond anything that I can do. And this kind of begs the question, now in the past, with discrete components inside of computers, we could sit there and say, okay, well, I'm going to bring this USB stick that has an operating system on it, and I'm going to boot from the USB stick, and I'm going to see if that works. And if that doesn't work, then I'll take out one of the RAM sticks. It's a process that you go through.
Mm-hmm.
But with the release of the M series computers, you can't do that anymore. It doesn't work because everything is integrated onto its system on a chip. Everything is integrated onto the main motherboard of the computer. And I made an appointment with a local Apple store and took the computer down there and told him everything I'd done, everything that I tried to do. And the guy just like plugged it into a monitor, and he looked and saw the blinking light, and he's like, oh, okay, that's motherboard failure. And it's like, oh, okay, well, how long will that take to replace? And he says, well, you have a custom configuration. And I said, well, not really. It's 16 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte of storage. And it's like, yeah, but the normal configuration is 8 gigs of RAM and either 256 or 512 gigs of storage. Right. So they had to send off to Cupertino to get a new motherboard for my M1, the Mac Mini. And so I came back here, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? Now, I have, and it's what's actually currently hooked up, I have, and it's actually a more powerful computer. It's the 16-inch MacBook Pro with 32 gigs of RAM. It's the M1 Pro chip instead of the regular M1.
Wow.
And a 1 terabyte of internal storage. But I'd never used it in this configuration with like 2 screens and all the rest of that. And it took me a little bit, but I managed to get everything up and working. And then I had to reconfigure all of the programs, including my work setup, because I wasn't going to get the Mac Mini back until Thursday or Friday of last week. And in the middle of all this, I'm starting to feel like crap. And it's like, this is not good. This is not a good combination. And we had a couple of COVID tests here in the house. Went ahead, took the test, came back positive for COVID. And somehow, through 2 years of a pandemic, with me going outside all of the time, going to work every single day because I was the only one that lived relatively close, never caught it. The way I caught it, and I'm almost embarrassed to tell you how and where I caught COVID after all of that. 2 years of a pandemic, going to the grocery stores, going to pharmacies, going to work, I went to Chicago. I've been to Florida twice. Nothing. Went to New York. Nothing. The way I caught it, 2 weeks ago, I went bowling with some guys from work. One of the guys reported, and I didn't know this, reported on Friday that he'd come down with COVID. And when he reported that to the other guys, one of the other guys was like, yeah, I just tested positive too. And that Thursday, because we bowled on Wednesday, that Thursday, I had spent the entire day with one of the guys where he came back positive the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And so he called me not on Friday, not on Saturday. He waited until Sunday to call me and tell me, oh yeah, I have COVID. And it's like, why wouldn't you tell me that when you found out that you had it and we had spent all this time together? No, he waited until Sunday. So it's like, son of a... Ugh. So I tested and yep, I came back positive for COVID, which made setting up this MacBook Pro for work very, very important because it hadn't been set up for that before. But as it turned out, it actually didn't matter because what I did most of that entire week was sleep. It was like I would just be sitting there with two screens going on and I'm logged into work and it seemed like I just closed my eyes for just a second and 2 hours have gone by. None of my screens are still there. The whole computer's fallen back asleep and it's like, God. So, I basically all I ended up doing as far as work goes, I checked my email in the morning and if there was anything important that I had to deal with, I dealt with that. And then I pretty much just logged off for the rest of the day. So I took the entirety of last week is I'm just using using sick leave. And that's fine because I've got like 200 plus hours of sick time coming to me. So it's not like it's not covered. But the thing that really irks me amongst so many other things is I had actually bought tickets to see an XFL game tonight. Local here to Washington, D.C. The D.C. Defenders were going to play the Seattle Sea Dragons. He's like, okay. And this was going to be their first game of the season. And they're playing at Audi Field, which is normally a soccer/football stadium for D.C. United here. And now I can't go. And it's too late to sell the tickets back. So I'm kind of screwed. Now I'll still be able to see the game because it's going to be on through streaming on TV, but it's not the same thing. And of course, the money that I spent on these tickets is now just gone. So
that's weird because we go to work. We've got it over here. He's still going to work now. Those restrictions have all gone. In fact, they told us specifically if you get it now, you still come into work. You're not getting any time off unless you're really, really ill. So yeah, obviously different in different countries. We go out all the time. People go out all the time with COVID at the moment over here. I mean, I've had it twice so far. Third time suspected, but I didn't bother testing it. I thought, because what's the point? If I've got it, I've got it. If I haven't, no big deal. So, just had a sore throat for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Well, I know some people it gets them really bad, obviously, but yeah.
Well, they don't want people coming in. if they're still. We have to have, I think, 2 negative tests before they'll let us come back in.
Yeah,
and Tracy, Tracy tested this morning because I went and got like a 5-pack of tests because we ran out. She tested this morning and it came back like barely positive. That T line was like really, really faint.
That's good.
And so I'm going to test tomorrow morning. There's no point in me testing today because if she still has it, then chances are I still have it. So I will test tomorrow. And again, sorry for any coughing. I did manage to hit the mute button once in the recording of this show, so it wasn't like this big long coughing fit. But I just found that because Gaz and I, and I'm sure you have as well, have been singing the praises of these M series Macs because they're just so fast compared to what the Intel stuff that they were using before. And for whatever reason, and I kind of poo-pooed the whole, well, I can't add my own RAM and I can't add my own storage because, RAM with these particular chips isn't as important as it was with the Intel chips. Storage, of course, is still important, but you can plug in storage from other sources. It's not that big of a deal. But this was the very first time that I ran into this. Well, my computer's broken and there is absolutely nothing that I can do.
But that's not necessarily, that's because it's the logic board that went. I mean, the logic board went on my dad's iMac, the Intel one, from when they started putting fusion drives in. I can't remember from exactly when that
2014, 15, something like that.
Yeah, but a few years ago, his one went, and it was the logic board. It's just gone. There's nothing you can do about it apart from replace or get another replacement for the logic board. It's just one of those things. And you're right. Okay, everything is now on that logic board, granted, under the M1, the RAM and everything. But if there's the logic board that's gone, it's gone. I suppose if you're into real technical repairs, you can get down and dirty with it and replace it with something else, maybe. But I think we've just got as because obviously you're a hobbyist and I was a hobbyist, and we came up through computers, and we came up from the ones we just bought. In my case, a ZX Spectrum and stuff where you couldn't really do much with that anyway. But through the VIC 2064, PCs, and then we started not only learning how to use the software, we started learning how all the bits fit together, and motherboards and RAM and hard drives and all this, and we made ourselves wizards to anyone that didn't know how to do this sort of stuff. And of course now it's moved on to such an extent that we can no longer do it, unfortunately, because it's so small and like down deep in the mechanics of the actual board itself that it's beyond us now. Even though we technically know what might have gone wrong, there's no way we can fix it. And that's just progress, I'm afraid. Like, I can't, if that telly goes wrong, I can't fix it in a million years. If our washing machine goes wrong, I can't fix it in a million years. So, I mean, that's progress, unfortunately.
To be fair, there's a difference between your washing machine and a television set, because there are still physical attributes of a washing machine that are repairable as compared to, like,
but you can repair the keys on your keyboard, for example. Well, you can replace the entire keyboard. It's turned out on the butterflies. But I understand what you're saying. But I think, okay, you've got a bum logic board there, unfortunately, and there's always going to be problems, which is why we get like a couple of years in this country, like cover. But yeah, I mean, it is frustrating because in the old days you probably could have fixed it with tinkering around with certain parts of the hardware. But that's all going. We can't claim on one hand, this is wonderful, look how fast and all the things it can do. And then on the other hand, when it all goes horribly wrong, going, no, it's rubbish, it's crap. I want to be able to fix it myself. Right? So we can't have it both ways, unfortunately.
I think I can. Well, I can complain about it.
You have every right to complain. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you haven't got that right. But we have to accept that if we want to move forward, these are the limitations that us as individual users are going to start running into, and it's a shame, but then the trade-off is quite worth it. I mean, if you're living on the edge and like money's an issue, then obviously it's not. But that's a whole different story. But yeah, it's totally frustrating when your machine goes down and you're stuck. And luckily, you've got another machine. I mean, in the old days, I didn't have two Commodore 64s just knocking around. On the off chance.
Oh well, that one's gone. I'll just plug this one in instead.
Exactly.
Didn't work.
So it is amazing. I mean, I look around me now, and there is literally dozens of computers in various forms I've got in this house, all doing specific things. I got one running upstairs, a mini in the attic, running a server for entertainment and stuff. I got this one here in front of me for podcasting. I've got another one somewhere else doing something as well. I've got iPads, got phones. It's just mad. What are we doing?
Well, everything has become a computer, essentially. Yes. And that's back. You want, depending on how far back you want to go, when cell phones first came out and they were just like the flip type, well, that wasn't a computer. It was mostly just a receiver and a transmitter, and you did something crazy with it, like get phone calls or talk to somebody else while out and about. And now it's like these little computer slabs that sit in your pocket, and it's replaced 6 or 7 other things that you used to. I don't want to say had to carry around, but if you wanted to do some of these other things, you would have cameras. Who carries DSLRs around anymore? Nobody.
I'll tell you what. I often think, was it back like this when the first computers started coming out, like the abacus? Did you get a guy come in and say, "Oh, these beads are much more slidey on the thing up and down"? Look, if we will upgrade,
or the huge the huge adding machines that had the big lever on the side, and you go shunk shunk. It's like, no, that got replaced by Excel. I mean, you were done with it. So it's insane that everything that we used to carry around separate devices for is now being done on a small little black slab that fits in our pockets. And
now, are you covered for your repair?
Yes. Yeah, I was covered until November. And so now I've got it back now, but I don't have it currently connected because I knew I was going to do the podcast today. And if I was going to go to all the trouble of making sure that I could use this for a podcast, I wasn't going to plug in basically a brand new computer, which is what it really is, that I haven't tested everything on yet to see if it's going to work. I'll probably do that at some point, because if it's one of those things where if I can't go to work again next week, it's like, well, what am I going to do all day? I'm going to re-plug in the Mac Mini and get everything back the way it was when I first started.